My name is Margaret Hayes. I am 74 years old, a retired schoolteacher, and a widow who spent most of her life raising her only son, Daniel. For decades, he was my pride, my joy, the one person who made all my sacrifices worth it. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the day he begged me not to attend his wedding. It was a chilly spring morning when the message arrived. Not a phone call, not a visit, but a short, cold text. "Mom, please don't come to the wedding. It's better for everyone this way." I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My own son, the boy I raised alone after his father's passing, was shutting me out of the happiest day of his life. My chest tightened as I read it again and again, each word cutting deeper than the last. I tried to call him, to understand, to beg for an explanation. Each call went unanswered. Each voicemail I left returned with silence. Days turned into weeks, and soon the invitations for his wedding were posted everywhere. Online photos, relatives chattering about the upcoming day, friends sharing excitement. But me? I was left in the shadows, deliberately excluded. My heart was shattered, but my spirit was not. I had to see him, even if from afar. So, on the day of the wedding, I put on a simple dress, grabbed my old walking stick, and drove to the venue. It was an outdoor ceremony on a large estate surrounded by tall, thick trees. Guests poured in, laughing, hugging, taking pictures, while I parked far from sight. I walked slowly, hiding behind the trees like a ghost, my heart pounding with a mixture of love and pain. From my hidden spot, I watched Daniel standing at the altar. He looked so handsome, so grown, and yet so far away from me. The bride appeared, stunning in white, her arm linked with a man I didn't know. The music swelled, the crowd rose to their feet, and I pressed my hand to my mouth to stop the sob that threatened to escape. And then it happened. I saw something I wasn't meant to see. As the bride approached, Daniel's face turned pale. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking past her, straight into the trees, straight at me. Our eyes locked for one piercing moment, and I saw fear, real fear, in his eyes. He turned quickly, whispering something to his groomsmen. Within minutes, two men in suits began walking toward the trees where I stood. My heart raced as I stepped back, hiding deeper into the shadows. What were they hiding? Why was my presence such a threat to him? And what secret was Daniel so desperately trying to keep from me? The closer they came, the more I realized this was no ordinary wedding. Something sinister was unfolding right before my eyes, and I was about to uncover it. What I saw next made my blood run cold. I froze, clutching the rough bark of the tree as the two men in suits scanned the area. They weren't ushers or staff. They moved with the precision of bodyguards, scanning every shadow, every rustle of leaves. I held my breath as they came dangerously close to where I hid. One of them even stepped just a few feet away from me, peering into the woods like a predator hunting prey. My heart pounded so loudly I thought they'd hear it. I crouched low, using the thick bushes to shield myself. After a tense few moments, they moved on, reporting back to someone near the tent. I could see Daniel gesturing nervously, his eyes darting back to the trees. He was worried, almost panicked.
Why?
I was his mother, not an intruder. Then I noticed something else, an older woman sitting in the front row, dressed elegantly, with a cold smile on her face. She looked at Daniel as if she owned him. The way she leaned into the bride's father and whispered something made my skin crawl. Whoever she wasn't just a guest. She had influence over him, over the entire ceremony. I wanted to scream, to run out there and demand answers, but I stayed put. This wasn't the moment to reveal myself. I had to understand what was happening. The vows began, and as they exchanged words, my eyes kept darting between Daniel and that mysterious woman. He wasn't happy, his smile was forced, his voice cracked. Then came the moment when the officiant said, "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now." Daniel hesitated. Just for a split second, his lips parted as if he wanted to say something. My heart ached to rush forward and save him. But before he could speak, The woman in the front row locked eyes with him and gave the slightest shake of her head. Whatever power she had over him, it was enough to silence my son.
They kissed.
The crowd erupted in applause. I stood in the shadows, tears streaming down my face. The wedding was done, but the darkness surrounding it had only begun to show itself. As the guests moved toward the reception tent, I slipped out from behind the trees and circled toward the back of the estate. That's when I heard a hushed argument. Daniel and the bride were out of sight from the crowd, but I could hear every word. Why was she here? Daniel's voice trembled. She's just an old woman. She won't ruin this, the bride snapped. You don't understand, he hissed. If she finds out the truth. Before he could finish, the bodyguards returned, forcing them back toward the reception. The truth. What truth? My hands shook as I clutched the tree trunk for support. I wasn't supposed to hear that, but I did. There was a secret so deep that Daniel was terrified I might discover it. And now, more than ever, I was determined to find out what it was. The reception roared to life with music and laughter, but I stayed hidden, watching, listening, piecing together fragments of conversations. Every glance, every whisper, every forced smile screamed of something sinister. When I finally decided to retreat to my car, thinking I'd come back later, a hand suddenly grabbed my arm from behind. I spun around, ready to scream, and what I saw left me trembling to my core. The hand gripping my arm was rough, cold, and unrelenting. I turned slowly, and there stood a man I hadn't seen in over 30 years, Richard, my late husband's estranged brother. My breath caught in my throat. He was older now, but his sharp eyes and cruel smirk hadn't aged a day. Margaret, he said in a low, mocking tone. Still snooping around where you're not wanted? My knees almost buckled. Richard disappeared after my husband died, taking with him a large sum of money from the family business. I'd thought he was gone forever. But here he was, alive, dressed in an expensive suit, and apparently working with the same people who didn't want me here. What are you doing here? I whispered, my voice trembling. He leaned in close, his breath reeking of whiskey. You shouldn't have come. Daniel's future doesn't need you meddling. Go home before you get hurt. Hurt? My heart pounded in my chest. What have you done to my son? I demanded, my voice cracking. Richard's smile widened, revealing teeth like a wolf. Your son made his choice. He's marrying into power, Margaret. Real power. The kind of power you wouldn't understand. And if you keep digging, you'll ruin everything, for him and for yourself. Before I could respond, he released my arm and melted back into the crowd, leaving me trembling in the shadows. My head spun with questions. What had Daniel gotten himself into? And why was Richard suddenly back in his life? I knew I had to confront my son, but every time I tried to approach, the bodyguards tightened their circle around him. It was as if he was being held prisoner at his own wedding. Every smile he gave the guests looked like a cry for help. As the night wore on, I slipped closer to the reception tent, blending into the darkness. I overheard fragments of conversations. Words like inheritance, shares, and transfer kept popping up. This wasn't just a marriage, it was a business deal. Then, as the music grew louder, I saw Daniel step away from the crowd, wiping his face like he was trying to hold back tears. He pulled out his phone, glancing over his shoulder nervously before dialing. I crept closer, hiding behind a bush, straining to hear. Mom, he whispered into the phone. My heart skipped. He was calling me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to be like this. I can't talk long. They're watching me. Suddenly, the phone was snatched from his hand by one of the bodyguards. They dragged him back toward the tent as he struggled. My chest felt like it was going to explode. They were controlling him. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a trap. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I started toward the tent, ready to step out and confront everyone. But before I could, a figure emerged from behind and grabbed my wrist again, harder this time. I gasped as I turned to see. Not Richard, but the mysterious woman from the front row. Her face was cold, her eyes like ice. You should have stayed away, she hissed. You have no idea what you've walked into, Margaret. Leave now while you still can. My breath hitched. Who are you? I demanded. She smirked, leaning so close I could feel her breath. I'm the one who owns your son now. Her words sliced through me like a blade. And before I could react, she slipped something into my hand. A small folded note. Read it when you're far from here, she said with a chilling smile. And if you're smart, you'll disappear. She vanished back into the lights, leaving me shaking, clutching the note like a lifeline. I ran back to my car, my hands trembling as I unfolded the paper under the dim interior light. What I read made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a warning. It was a confession, one that changed everything I thought I knew about my son, his bride, and the dark alliance controlling them. And then, headlights flooded my car as another vehicle blocked my way out of the estate. A shadow stepped out, slowly walking toward me. The blinding headlights burned into my eyes as the figure approached my car with slow, deliberate steps. My pulse hammered so loudly that it drowned out the wedding music in the distance. I gripped the steering wheel, ready to slam my foot on the gas if I had to. As the figure moved closer, I recognized him. It was Daniel, my son. His tie was undone, his eyes swollen with tears, and his hands trembled as he reached for my car door. I unlocked it without thinking, and he slid into the passenger seat, shutting the door quickly behind him. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking, "you have to go. They'll kill you if they know you're here." My heart ached hearing him like this, so fragile, so afraid. "Daniel, tell me what's going on. Who are these people? What have they done to you?" He rubbed his face with both hands, shaking his head. "It's too late, Mom. I'm in too deep. They control everything. My job, my debts, even this marriage. If I don't go through with it, they'll ruin me. They'll ruin you too." I reached for his hand, but he pulled away like a scared child. "Listen to me," I said firmly. "No one owns my son. We can fight this together. Tell me the truth." He looked at me with haunted eyes, tears spilling over. "The woman you saw, her name is Victoria Kane. She's not just wealthy, she's dangerous. Her family runs everything in this town, Mom. They paid off my debts, and now they own me. This marriage isn't about love. It's about merging power and money. And Richard," his voice cracked, "he's the one who brought me to them. He promised they'd fix everything, but he sold me to them." My chest tightened with rage. My own brother-in-law had sold out my son to a family of vultures. "Daniel, we need to leave. Now. You don't have to go through with this." But he shook his head violently. "You don't understand. They're watching every move I make. If I run, they'll come after us both. Please, just leave. I can handle this. You'll only make it worse by staying." Tears blurred my vision. "I won't leave you in their hands, Daniel. You're my son. I'll burn this entire place to the ground if I have to." Before he could respond, a sharp knock rattled the car window. I turned and saw one of the bodyguards glaring at us. Daniel stiffened. "Pretend you don't know me," he whispered. "Please, Mom." He slipped out of the car, forcing a smile at the guard, who barked something into his earpiece. They dragged him back toward the reception like a prisoner returning to his cell. My hands clenched the steering wheel, shaking with fury. When they disappeared, I unfolded the note the woman had given me earlier. Under the dim light, the words chilled me to my core. "Daniel belongs to us now. If you try to interfere, you won't just lose him. You'll lose everything. Leave, or be buried with the secrets you're trying to uncover." My body trembled, but my mind sharpened like a blade. I wasn't leaving. Not until I understood the full extent of their grip on my son. I started the car, pretending to leave. But instead, I drove around the back of the estate and parked behind a line of tall hedges. I wasn't going anywhere. I would watch, I would listen, and I would strike when they least expected it. Hours passed. The reception continued with laughter and dancing, but I could see Daniel's fake smile from where I watched through the branches. Then, around midnight, something strange happened. The lights in the tent flickered, and a commotion broke out. Guests began whispering nervously, and Victoria stood up, speaking into her phone with an expression that could kill. Moments later, I saw Richard rushing toward her with a briefcase, his face pale. Whatever was happening, it wasn't part of the celebration. This was something darker. I crept closer through the trees until I could hear their voices. "Where is it?" Victoria hissed. Richard stammered. I had it. Someone must have taken it." "Find it," she growled, "or you're as good as dead." My heart raced. What was it? What could be so important that it made them panic during their own wedding? As I leaned in to hear more, a branch cracked under my foot. Both of them froze, their heads snapping toward the trees where I hid. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "We're not alone." The guards swarmed like wolves, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. I ran deeper into the woods, my heart pounding, clutching the note like a weapon. They were closing in fast. And then, just as I thought I'd escape, I tripped over something in the darkness. When I looked down, I saw what it was, and my scream caught in my throat. My trembling fingers brushed against the object I had tripped over. It wasn't just a random branch or a rock. It was a small black box, scuffed but locked tight. My breath hitched. Why was this hidden in the woods, away from the chaos of the wedding? I crouched, pulling it closer, my heart pounding as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Voices echoed through the darkness. The guards were close, their flashlights sweeping wildly across the underbrush. I clutched the box to my chest and scrambled deeper into the forest, my old knees aching with every desperate step. I knew I didn't have long. I found a hollow beneath a fallen tree and slid inside, holding my breath as beams of light passed just inches away from my hiding spot. "She's here somewhere," one of the guards barked. My heart thudded so hard, I thought they could hear it. Minutes felt like hours until they finally moved away, their voices fading into the distance. When I was certain they were gone, I dared to open the box. My hands shook as I forced the rusted latch open. Inside were papers, dozens of them, contracts, financial records, and photos. My eyes scanned through them, and with each page, my stomach turned. They were deals tying Daniel to Victoria's family's empire, but they were more than just business agreements. They were blackmail documents. One photo stopped me cold. It was Daniel, sitting at a table with men I didn't recognize, signing something while Richard stood behind him with a wicked grin. The caption written in bold red ink read, "Owned." My blood boiled. They had trapped my son using his debts, forcing him to sign away his freedom. But there was something else, something far more disturbing at the bottom of the box. A sealed envelope marked with my name, Margaret Hayes. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper that made my knees buckle beneath me. It was a forged will, my will. According to this document, everything I owned, including the house my husband built, was being transferred to Victoria Kane and her family upon my death. My breath came in sharp gasps. They weren't just after Daniel, they were after me. They were planning to take everything, and this forged document proved it. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind me. I spun around, clutching the papers, only to find myself face to face with Daniel. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Mom, what have you done?" he whispered. "I found the truth, Daniel," I said, my voice trembling. "They're using you. They're destroying you. And they plan to destroy me too." He shook his head, tears spilling down his cheeks. "You shouldn't have seen this. If they find out you have these documents, they'll kill you." I grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to look at me. "We're leaving.
Right now."
I'm not letting them win." But before we could move, a flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing directly on us. "There," a guard shouted. Daniel's face twisted with panic. "Run, Mom."
Run.
I bolted through the trees, clutching the papers to my chest as shouts erupted behind me. Branches whipped my face, my breath burned in my lungs. But I didn't stop. I could hear them getting closer, their footsteps pounding like drums of war. Suddenly, I burst out of the woods and stumbled onto a dirt road. My car was just a few feet away. I threw the papers into the front seat and scrambled inside, slamming the door shut. The guards emerged from the trees, shouting, but I jammed the keys into the ignition and sped away, gravel spraying behind me. In the rearview mirror, I saw Daniel being pulled back into the darkness by those men. His face, oh God, his face, was full of silent pleading. He mouthed one word to me as they dragged him away: help. Tears blurred my vision as I drove into the night, my heart torn between fear and fury. They had my son. They had power. But I had something they didn't expect: the evidence in my hands. As I reached the safety of my home, I locked every door and sat trembling in my kitchen, spreading the papers across the table. The more I read, the clearer it became. This was bigger than just Daniel's marriage. This was an empire built on blackmail, forged documents, and illegal dealings. Suddenly, headlights lit up my driveway. My blood froze. I wasn't safe. Not anymore. The car door opened, and heavy footsteps approached my porch. A shadow moved past the curtains, and the doorknob rattled slowly. The doorknob rattled again, harder this time. I pressed my back against the kitchen wall, clutching the stack of documents as if they were a shield. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out every other sound. Who was out there? Victoria's men? Richard? Or someone worse? Then a voice, low and trembling, broke the silence. "Mom, it's me, Daniel." I rushed to the door and yanked it open. He stood there, bruised, his suit torn, his tie gone. He looked like a man who had just escaped hell. Before I could say a word, he stumbled inside and collapsed against me. I held him tightly, tears burning my eyes. "Mom, they know you took the box," he whispered, his voice shaking. "They're coming. They won't stop until they have it back." I locked the door and dragged him into the kitchen, sitting him down. "Daniel, I have the documents. I have proof of everything they've done. We can take this to the police." He laughed bitterly, a sound that tore through me. "The police? Mom, they own the police. They own everyone. If we hand this over, it'll disappear. And so will we." I looked at the papers scattered across the table. Contracts, photos, the forged will, all of it damning. There has to be someone who can help us. Someone they don't control. Daniel's eyes darted to the window, fear creeping back into his face. "There's one man," he said finally. "A journalist. His name is Jack Mercer. He's been investigating the Kane family for years. If anyone can bring them down, it's him." But what?" I demanded. "He's in hiding. They've tried to kill him twice already. If we find him, we might get the truth out, but we'll be putting ourselves in even more danger." I took his hand firmly. "Danger doesn't scare me, Daniel. Losing you does." Before we could say another word, a loud crash shattered the moment. The front window exploded inward, glass spraying across the kitchen. Daniel pulled me to the ground as a figure in black climbed through, followed by another. They were here. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a heavy cast-iron skillet, and swung it with all the strength in my aging arms. It connected with one intruder's head, sending him crashing to the floor. The second lunged at Daniel, but he fought back, grappling and throwing punches like a man fighting for his life. We ran for the back door, but a third man appeared, blocking our way. My heart stopped. Then, out of nowhere, a shot rang out. The man fell, clutching his leg. Smoke curled from the barrel of a gun, held by none other than Richard. I froze, my heart twisting. "You," I spat. Richard looked at me with a grim face. "Don't thank me. I'm not here to save you. I'm here because Victoria just put a price on my head too. They don't need me anymore. They're cleaning house." Daniel grabbed him by the collar. "Why should we trust you?" "Because," Richard growled, "I'm the only one who knows where Jack Mercer is. You want to take Victoria down? You'll need me alive." The room reeked of betrayal and fear, but his words rang true. We were trapped, and he was our only lead. More headlights appeared outside, cutting through the night. More of Victoria's men were coming. Richard glanced at me, his face pale. "We have to leave. Now. If we stay, we're dead." I gathered the papers, stuffing them into a bag, and we fled through the back door into the freezing night. My old legs burned, but I ran harder than I had in years. Daniel stayed close to me, his breath ragged, while Richard led the way to a waiting car hidden behind the trees. As we sped away, the house behind us erupted in flames. My home, the only thing I had left of my husband, was burning to the ground. I bit my lip to stop the sob that rose in my throat. They wanted to erase me, erase us. In the rearview mirror, the glow of the fire grew smaller, but the danger only grew bigger. Richard drove with white knuckles, Daniel stared straight ahead, and I clutched the bag like my life depended on it. Finally, I turned to Richard. "Where is this journalist?" He smirked darkly. "Far away. And if we're not careful, we'll never live to see him." I gripped the seatbelt, my jaw tightening. They had taken everything from me, my peace, my home, my sense of safety. But I still had my son. And as long as I was alive, I wasn't giving up. Just as I began to think we were safe, headlights flared behind us. A black SUV roared into view, chasing us with terrifying speed. "They've found us," Daniel whispered. Richard slammed the gas pedal, the car swerving wildly on the narrow road. "Hold on," he barked. "This is going to get ugly." And then, the first bullet shattered the back window. The sound of shattering glass exploded in my ears as the bullet tore through the back window, scattering shards across Daniel and me. I ducked instinctively, clutching the bag of evidence to my chest. The SUV behind us roared louder, its headlights glaring like the eyes of a predator closing in on its prey. "Hold on," Richard shouted, his voice gruff but edged with fear. He swerved hard, the tires screaming as we barely avoided slamming into a ditch. The road ahead twisted like a snake, and every turn felt like it could be our last. Another shot rang out. This one hit the rear fender, jerking the car violently. Daniel threw his arm in front of me, shielding me as best he could. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. "They're not stopping," I cried, gripping the seat. "They're not supposed to," Richard growled. "They were ordered to make sure none of us live to see daylight." Daniel glanced back, his face pale. "There's more than one car now." I turned and saw it. Another SUV emerging from the darkness, speeding to cut us off from the front. We were trapped. Richard cursed under his breath. "There's only one way out." He yanked the wheel sharply, veering off the road and into the woods. Branches whipped against the windshield, and the car jolted violently as it plowed through uneven ground. Behind us, the SUVs followed, their engines growling, their lights slicing through the trees. The ride was brutal. My head slammed against the seat, my arms wrapped tight around the bag. The forest blurred into streaks of black and green as we tore through it, dodging fallen logs and boulders by mere inches. "Where are you taking us?" Daniel shouted. "There's an old logging road up ahead," Richard yelled back. "If we make it there, we can lose them. If we don't," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Bullets kept coming, splintering tree trunks around us, one grazing the side mirror, sending it spinning into the night. The smell of burning rubber and gunpowder filled the air. Finally, we burst onto a narrow dirt path. Richard slammed the accelerator, and for a brief moment, we gained distance. But the reprieve didn't last long. The SUVs were relentless, closing in fast. Then, just when I thought it was over, the path split in two. Without hesitation, Richard yanked the wheel left, skidding across loose gravel. The SUVs followed, but the second one misjudged the turn and crashed into a tree with a deafening crunch. Flames erupted behind us, lighting the night sky. "One down," Richard muttered, his grip tight on the wheel. The first SUV was still on us, though, and its driver was far more skilled. It rammed our car from behind, jolting us forward. I screamed as the car fishtailed wildly. Daniel grabbed the wheel to help Richard steady it. "Mom, hold on," Daniel shouted as Richard braked suddenly, letting the SUV overshoot us. At the last second, he swerved, slamming into its side. The enemy vehicle skidded, slammed into a tree, and flipped, rolling into flames. Silence. For a moment, only the sound of our labored breathing filled the air. We kept driving until the forest thinned, and the glow of distant lights appeared. Richard slowed the car and turned down a hidden gravel road, eventually stopping near an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. "We'll stay here until sunrise," he said, his voice grim. "They'll regroup." But we bought ourselves a few hours. Daniel slumped back, running a hand over his face. "This is insane. They'll never stop coming." I laid a hand on his arm. "As long as we have the truth, they'll keep hunting us. That means we have to hit them first. We find Jack Mercer. We expose them." Richard leaned against the car, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. "You don't understand, Margaret. Mercer's not just hiding from them. He's hiding from everyone. He doesn't trust anyone. If we find him, we'll have to convince him we're not part of their trap." I met his eyes, unflinching. "Then we'll convince him. Because this doesn't end until the Kane family falls." For the first time, I saw a flicker of something almost like respect in Richard's eyes. That night, in the freezing darkness of the cabin, none of us slept. Every creak of the wood, every rustle of leaves outside made my heart jump. I clutched the bag like a lifeline, knowing the evidence inside was the only thing keeping us alive. Just before dawn, Richard whispered, "We move at first light. Mercer's hideout is 2 towns away. If we make it, we might just have a fighting chance." The first rays of sunlight bled into the forest. Daniel stood at the window, tense, scanning the trees. Suddenly, his face went pale.
"They found us," he said.
I rushed to his side and saw them. 3 SUVs creeping through the trees, surrounding the cabin like predators circling prey. Richard grabbed his gun, his face grim. "Get ready. This is going to be a war." The door rattled under the force of the first hit. Then the window shattered as black-clad men poured in. The cabin erupted into chaos. The door burst open under a second blow, and masked men stormed in, their boots pounding against the wooden floor. Richard fired first, dropping one of them instantly, the gunshot deafening in the small space. "Stay down, Mom," Daniel yelled as he shoved me behind an overturned table. I crouched low, clutching the bag, my hands trembling so violently I thought I might drop it. Bullets tore through the walls, splinters flying everywhere. Smoke from gunfire filled the air, choking me as I tried to stay quiet. Richard kept shooting, reloading with practice speed, while Daniel grabbed a broken chair leg and swung at the first man who came too close. The crack of bone echoed as the intruder fell. Out the back, Richard barked. "Move!" Daniel grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the rear exit, but as we ran, another masked man appeared in our path. He lunged, grabbing me by the arm. I screamed, struggling as he tried to wrench the bag away. Daniel tackled him to the ground, wrestling violently. They rolled across the floor, fists flying, until Daniel managed to slam the man's head against the wall, knocking him out cold. We bolted out the back door, stumbling into the cold morning air. The forest was alive with shouts as more men gave chase. Richard fired behind us, covering our escape. "Keep moving," he shouted. Branches whipped against my face as we ran through the trees. My lungs burned. Every step felt like it would be my last, but I refused to stop. Ahead, I saw a narrow river cutting through the forest. "We'll cross there," Richard shouted. Bullets whizzed past us as we slid down the muddy bank. Daniel jumped first, splashing into the freezing water, then turned to help me. I clung to the bag as he pulled me across, the current threatening to drag us under. Richard was the last to cross, firing one last shot before diving into the river. On the other side, soaked and shaking, we collapsed behind a cluster of rocks. The men were still searching, their voices growing fainter as we crawled deeper into the undergrowth. Eventually, we lost them, at least for now. Richard spat out water, breathing hard. That was too close. They won't stop. We need to keep moving before they regroup. Daniel looked at me, his face pale. "Mom, we can't keep running forever. What if we don't make it?" I grabbed his face with both hands, forcing him to look at me. "Listen to me, Daniel. We will make it, because we have something they fear, proof. And I will not let them win." For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw a flicker of strength return to his eyes. We trudged through the forest for hours, cold, wet, and exhausted, until Richard led us to an old hunting cabin, hidden so well it looked like part of the trees. Inside, it was dusty, but safe. We collapsed on the floor, catching our breath. "This is where we plan our next move," Richard said, lighting a lantern. "Jack Mercer is staying in an abandoned motel on the outskirts of Pine Ridge. If we get to him before they do, he can release everything we have to the world. But if they reach him first, they'll silence him," Daniel finished grimly. I clutched the bag tighter. "Then we have to move at nightfall. They'll expect us to travel during the day." Richard nodded. "Agreed. But there's something you need to know, Margaret. There's a traitor in this game, and it's not me." My stomach sank. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, looking at Daniel with an expression I couldn't read. "Victoria has someone on the inside feeding her every move we make. That's how they've been tracking us so easily." Daniel frowned. "Who could it be?" "No one else knows we're alive." Richard's voice was low, almost a whisper. "She has leverage. Someone close to you, Margaret. Someone you'd never suspect." My chest tightened. "Who?" Before he could answer, the lantern flickered and went out. The room plunged into darkness. Then a voice, cold and mocking, cut through the silence. "You didn't really think you could hide from me, did you?" My heart stopped. Victoria Kane herself stepped into the cabin doorway, flanked by 2 armed men, her face twisted into a cruel smile. Victoria Kane stepped into the dim cabin as if she owned it, her heels clicking softly against the old wooden floor. The lantern's dying embers flickered, casting a ghostly glow across her sharp features. Her 2 armed men stood like shadows behind her, guns raised, eyes cold. "Margaret," she said smoothly, almost like a greeting between old friends. "You've caused me more trouble than I expected. For an old woman, you've been persistent." I stood slowly, clutching the bag of evidence to my chest. My knees trembled, but my voice didn't falter. "You've stolen my son's freedom, burned my home, and tried to kill us. You'll never win." Victoria's lips curved into a sly smile. "Win? My dear, I already have. Your son belongs to me now. Everything he does, every breath he takes, is mine. And soon, everything you own will be too. Unless," she tilted her head, eyes glinting, "unless you hand over that bag." I tightened my grip. Over my dead body. Her smile didn't fade. "That can be arranged." She nodded to her men, and they stepped forward. Daniel moved in front of me, his arms outstretched. "You'll have to go through me first," he shouted. Victoria's laughter was low and cruel. "Oh, Daniel, so much like your father. Brave but foolish." Her eyes flicked to Richard, who was slowly reaching for his gun. "And you, Richard, always switching sides when it suits you. Did you really think you could outrun me?" Richard snarled, his gun drawn. "Try me." The tension cracked like a whip. The room became a standoff, guns raised, hearts pounding. And then Victoria dropped the final bomb. "You still don't know, do you?" she said, her voice dripping with venom. "The traitor isn't Richard. It's someone closer to you, Margaret. Someone you trusted." I felt my stomach twist. "Who?" She stepped aside, and a 4th figure entered the cabin. My breath caught in my throat as the lantern light revealed the face of my own sister, Helen. My legs nearly gave out. "Helen? No, this isn't possible." Helen's eyes were cold as she stepped forward. "It's possible, Margaret. You never saw it, but I've always hated you. You got everything. Our parents' love, the house, Daniel's affection. I had nothing. So when Victoria offered me power, I took it. Tears blurred my vision. You betrayed your own family?" She sneered. "Family? You were never my family." Before I could respond, Helen lunged, grabbing for the bag. I stumbled back, clutching it tight. Daniel tackled her to the floor, but Victoria's men advanced, weapons aimed. Richard fired, dropping one of them, and chaos erupted. Gunfire roared, deafening in the small cabin. I crawled toward the back, clutching the bag, as bullets tore through the walls. Richard fought like a madman, covering us, while Daniel wrestled with Helen, who screamed like a wild animal. In the middle of the fight, Victoria calmly raised her gun, aiming straight at me. Our eyes locked. Her smile widened. Then Daniel screamed, "Mom, get down," and tackled me just as the gun went off. The shot rang out, and pain seared through my arm as the bullet grazed me. I cried out, clutching the wound, but I held onto the bag. I wasn't letting go, not now, not ever. Richard's last bullet hit one of Victoria's men square in the chest, but the other slammed into him, knocking him to the ground. Victoria kicked the gun from his hand, pressing her heel against his throat. "Pathetic," she spat. "You thought you could save them?" Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the cabin. Richard had pulled the pin on a small smoke grenade hidden in his jacket. Thick gray smoke filled the room, swallowing everything in choking clouds. Screams erupted. "Run!" Richard shouted, coughing violently. Daniel grabbed me, dragging me through the smoke toward the back door. I clutched the bag tight, my arm burning with pain, as we stumbled out into the cold night. Behind us, the cabin filled with flames. The grenade had ignited something, and the entire place began to burn. We ran, the smoke curling after us like a beast. I turned just in time to see Victoria and Helen silhouetted in the doorway, watching us with eyes that promised vengeance. We kept running until our legs gave out, collapsing in the darkness far from the flames. Richard limped toward us, blood on his face, but alive. Daniel held me close. "Mom, we have to finish this. We have to find Mercer now. It's our only chance." I nodded weakly, clutching the bag.
Yes.
"Before they kill us all." Somewhere behind us, sirens wailed. Whether they belonged to real police or Victoria's men, we didn't know. But we had no choice. The final confrontation was coming. As dawn broke, we stumbled onto an old road leading to Pine Ridge. The sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky blood red. We had survived the night, but the war was far from over. And then Richard collapsed to the ground, coughing violently, blood spilling from his mouth. "Richard!" Daniel shouted, lifting him. Richard's voice was weak, barely a whisper. "Go, find Mercer. Don't stop. No matter what happens to me." He shoved a blood-stained slip of paper into my hand, a location. "He's waiting for you, go." His eyes closed. The slip of paper trembled in my hand as Daniel cradled Richard's lifeless body. The forest was silent except for the faint hiss of wind through the trees. My heart ached, not because I ever fully trusted Richard, but because he had died protecting us. He had given us our last chance. "Mom," Daniel said, his voice thick with grief. "We have to move. They'll come. They'll keep coming." I wiped the tears from my face and nodded. The coordinates Richard had given us led to an abandoned motel on the outskirts of Pine Ridge, the hideout of Jack Mercer. We walked for hours, my arms still throbbing from the bullet graze, every step a battle against exhaustion. By the time we reached the edge of town, the sun had climbed high, and the motel stood like a forgotten relic, a cracked sign reading sunset in, barely clinging to the roof. Daniel knocked cautiously on one of the peeling doors. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the door creaked open, revealing a man with unkempt hair, sharp eyes, and a camera slung around his neck. "Mercer?" I asked, breathless. He scanned us, his expression wary. "Who sent you?" "Richard," I said, holding up the bag. "He died to get this to you." Mercer's gaze shifted to the bag, and for the first time, his expression softened. "Get inside."
Now.
The room smelled of dust and coffee. We spread the documents across the table, and Mercer's eyes widened as he flipped through them. "My God, this is everything I've been chasing for years. This is enough to bring the Kane family down, to expose every corrupt official they own." Daniel leaned forward. "Then do it. Release it." Mercer hesitated. "It's not that simple. They'll try to kill me the second I upload this. They'll try to kill all of us." I stepped forward, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. "Then we make it impossible for them to stop us. You send it everywhere, every news outlet, every social media platform. You expose them so completely they can't hide. Mercer met my eyes, and I saw his resolve harden. You're right. I'll do it. He set to work, scanning the documents, uploading files, encrypting everything to prevent interception. Time ticked by painfully slow. Daniel stood guard by the window, watching for any sign of approaching cars. My chest tightened with every passing minute. Then, just as Mercer hit send on the final upload, the motel lights flickered. Daniel cursed under his breath. They're here. SUVs roared into the parking lot, and Victoria Kane herself stepped out, flanked by a dozen armed men. She shouted into a megaphone, her voice cold and commanding. Margaret, hand over the evidence, and maybe I'll let your son live. Mercer turned to me. It's done. The files are out there. Even if they kill us, the truth is free. I felt a surge of strength course through me. They couldn't win now, not when the world would see what they really were. The door crashed open, and Victoria's men stormed in. Daniel fought with everything he had. Mercer swung a chair, and I grabbed the nearest lamp, smashing it into an attacker's head. Gunfire erupted, deafening and chaotic. Victoria entered, stepping over the fallen like a queen surveying her court. Her gun was aimed straight at me. You just don't know when to die, do you? I stood tall despite the fear clawing at my chest. You can kill me, but you can't kill the truth. The world knows now. Her eyes narrowed, rage flashing across her face. She pulled the trigger, but Daniel lunged, knocking her aim aside. The bullet shattered the window. They struggled, the gun slipping from her hand. I grabbed it, my hands shaking, and aimed at her. Victoria froze, smirking. Do it, old woman. You don't have the guts. I stared into her cold eyes and whispered, This is for my son. The gunshot rang out. Victoria collapsed, her smirk gone forever. Her men, realizing their leader was dead and the evidence was already out, fled into the night. The room fell silent, save for our heavy breaths. Daniel dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. I fell beside him, holding him tight. Outside, sirens wailed. Not the corrupted police, but federal agents responding to Mercer's leak. Cars swarmed the motel, agents storming in to secure the scene. They took Victoria's body, arrested her fleeing men, and escorted us to safety. Hours later, as the sun rose, news stations everywhere broadcasted the downfall of the Kane Empire. Their crimes, their corruption, their murders, all exposed. Daniel stood beside me, his hand holding mine. It's over, Mom. You did it. I looked at him, tears in my eyes. No, we did it. The world knew the truth. My son was free. The woman who tried to destroy us was gone. As we walked away from the ashes of everything they tried to build on lies, I felt a strange peace settle over me. I had fought, and I had won. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If this story moved you, if it showed you the strength of a mother's love and the power of truth, like, comment, and subscribe. Because no matter how dark it gets, the truth will always rise.